This story begins in Deauville last October. In the streets, women all over the place. Only women, all going to the Palace of Festivals, which welcomes the Women's Forum. Female politicians, business women, organization leaders, overall, more than 1,000 women from 88 countries. They're all here for this feminine Davos. We will follow the event with Margot Wallström, Vice President of the European Parliament. Atilia Molokomé, Justice of the Supreme Court of Botswana.
Big struggle. The whole thing is, it's about power, you see? And for women to get more women in there, a few men have to get out.
Fadela Amara, French Secretary of State for Urban Affairs. Truth is that women must fight to snatch places, and if push comes to shove, they will kick some ass. Nadera Shamlou is counselor at the World Bank.
I mean, there are a couple of things that change the societies. One is brute force, or the other thing is economic need.
The forum starts off. At the same time, the markets are falling apart, the crisis is at the heart of the debates. And as somebody else put it, men mess up and women come to put everything back in order. The tone's been set, time to start. Flashback. Everything began 48 hours earlier. Today there are obviously issues related to the crisis, but there is also the fact that in some leadership positions, there's a lack of women, and we ask a question at the Women's Forum. If we entitled women with more responsibilities, would we have undergone such a crisis? So today, those are the issues at stake. Aude de Thuin is the founder of this forum, and it's not her first challenge. This determined Breton lady has set up her first small business at the age of 22. Very quickly, this businesswoman makes her presence felt. She will create 2 other companies. 4 years ago, she decides to sell out everything to start on this new adventure. Among her supporters are Anne Lauvergeon, CEO of Arriva, Mercedes Era, CEO of Euro RSCG Worldwide, and Christine Ockrent. On the day prior to the opening, there's a little feeling of anxiety. How are you? Here we go. Can I let you carry that? It hurts my arm. But how did she get this idea? One day, she wanted to go to Davos as a business owner. Davos, this little Swiss town which receives each year the world leaders to debate the planet's problems. And on that day, they refused to let her in this very selective club. I had female friends who were able to get in Davos, and I didn't understand why I wasn't able to get in. But I realized it was because they were powerful women in big companies, whereas I didn't represent anything for them. I had one small business, that's nothing for Davos, where people were supposed to change the course of events in the world, and that's how I started to initiate this process. Aude is not a philanthropist. The forum is funded by private companies, partners who want to play women's card. Moreover, the entry ticket is important. Thanks to that, the forum invites women from developing countries, women who have a project, convictions, but not enough funds to pay for travel expenses. Was it a political choice for you to refuse public funding? Yes, because I hate subsidies. I hate the idea of undergoing pressures, and that automatically goes along with subsidies. Behind a subsidy is the state, a government, the European Commission, who say, since we fund you, you must say that. What will you answer to those who will say, you will be dependent of such and such company, you'll undergo the same pressures? No, because I split the sales figures between all those companies so that none of them can prevail. Now you have your answer. And what's at stake during these 3 days? Change the world. It's just an illusion, but if only we could shake things up, that would be wonderful. Roissy Airport Charles de Gaulle. Nadera Shamlou is landing. She's Iranian. She lives in the US, works in the Middle East and Africa. Her boss is the World Bank. Her job is to help women become emancipated in regions where it isn't easy. As soon as she arrives, she reviews the papers. The financial crisis is on the front page. Iceland, a country in bankruptcy has appointed 2 women at the head of its 2 biggest banks.
In this particular case, I think in the case of Iceland, they said that, there had been these years of free or very aggressive risk-taking. The article talks about testosterone-driven, and it's not my wording, but it's what this article says, testosterone-driven risk-taking. Women are less, they like to take smaller steps, they're more risk-averse, and perhaps this is what, at this point in time, the financial sectors need. And I think what crises do is like who can do the job best way, and race, ethnicity, gender is being set aside because people want to get things done, and to get things done better and faster. And perhaps crises are kind of the silver lining in the cloud, as they say, that perhaps this would be it opens new doors, new opportunities.
In Deauville as well, the place of women in the economy is at the heart of the debate. Aude de Thuin rejoices over an article published the same day in the daily Le Monde talking about women as an antidote to the market crisis. In this paper, The Economist declares, based on statistics, that women's management is a lot more prudent than men. We must communicate over this. It's incredibly interesting. There are all the figures which prove that the higher the rate of women in company is, the better the course of the market is. After this, no one can come and tell us that women don't have a role to play, and I'm not adopting a feminist stance here. I'm simply asking for more parity in the company's boards of directors and the decision-making spheres. That's the real demand I make, and it's not a feminist demand.
Voilà, c'est ça, la revendication qui n'en est pas une au sens féministe des termes.
7 p.m., last modification for tomorrow's opening speech. Maria, are you staying for my speech? This is Maria Cathy, one of Aude's leading counselors, general manager for the Davos Forum for 19 years. What shall we do? Shall we try it out and see how it sounds?
Good morning. Welcome to the Women's Forum, the Forum of Progress.
The next day, the curtain rises. Aude de Thuin sets the tone. She puts all the attention on the women and the crisis.
Those of you here today, 1,200 people from 88 countries, are here to implement this concept of progress so as to provide a different vision for our world and economy. Women also have a different way of managing crisis. Women and men have to work together now to find remedies to move forward.
When Aude concludes her speech, one of the most expected public figures arrives. That is the blonde Margot Wallström, Vice President of the European Commission. The Swedish mother of 2 children was Secretary of State for Social and Women's Affairs and Secretary of State for Culture. In a few minutes, she will be on the platform.
This corner here, which is called the man's corner, and top CEOs are coming here to this man's corner to discuss basically
to feel at home,
diversity in their company. And they feel at home, as you say.
And gender equality is not an issue for women. No. It's for both men and women.
Absolutely,
so it's
because
about democracy.
as you said earlier, there is still men ruling the companies and so on, and it's a man's world, so you need to change the mentalities of the men first in order to get the quotas of women.
But you're playing a little bit to the stereotypes that men would appreciate.
This is why we have the curtain, so that nobody sees it, you know.
A few months away from the European election, parity is Wallström's main theme. She has just published a column in the European press to condemn Berlusconi, the misogynist, praised the Spanish Prime Minister Zapatero, who imposed a majority of 9 women in his government. And she deplores the absence of female candidacies to the presidency of the Commission in Brussels.
Currently, less than 1 in 3 members of the European Parliament is a woman. So clearly, what somebody has called the male cartel is alive and well, not only in national parliaments, but unfortunately also at the EU level. I believe it's high time to give women their turn, and I want to see 50-50 democracy in Europe. Merci beaucoup.
Atilia Molokomé arrived the day before from Gaborone, the capital of Botswana. She's supreme judge in her country. She's the first lady to be appointed at such a high level. Her job is to advise the President of the Republic and the secretaries for any important juridic decision.
Where I work, here, on this one. Here. Up here. This is my building.
That's your
12th floor, yeah. The best view in Gaborone. I can see everything.
In Botswana?
In Gaborone. It's the highest building. Yeah, it's amazing. This is the Ministry of Health. It's shorter. Yeah, that's my place. My car always parks in front here. The car of the boss.
The boss is number 3 of the government of Botswana, a country rich in diamonds, minerals, and fossil fuels, one of the richest countries in the region. Atilia has an astonishing story, since she lived her childhood without any running water or electricity.
My parents were not rich. They were not privileged, but they were teachers, so they were educated relative to other people of their age in Botswana. So they had been to secondary school and they had a qualification, and they had a job. So that made a difference for me. So I was born into a family of achievers, of people who believed that education was very important. So for me, that was the beginning of my journey, as it were, into public life.
After her speech, Margot Wallström meets the press. She hammers her stance and regrets that French political parties rather pay fines than respecting parity. She regrets that in Brussels, despite numerous resolutions, quota policies don't exist.
I have learned to speak more about parity, because I think it's parity that we discuss in the context of democracy. It's about parity, but I think sometimes you need to have a quota. Many women also are against quotas because, it has a very negative connotation if you speak about quotas. But I don't fear quotas, and of course what we know is also in political representation that it has been very helpful. We can see that it means the outcome is a positive one. And I think it would be different if we did not have any women candidates, because then it would be really demeaning to women. It would belittle women. But today we have good candidates. It's not that we lack candidates. It's a matter of men choosing men. Or do you think that the men are not on a quota? The ones that are there today, they are on an invisible quota, many of the men, because they have been chosen by other men who say there are no women, because they don't see the women candidates, so they are not chosen. If Spain, which is considered a kind of macho country historically, if Spain can have a government with 50-50, to have a defense minister who inspects the troops being 7 months pregnant, then I think everything is possible. And I think that only to provide that image of change is so important. And of course, Zapatero, by that, has taken away the argument that you cannot have a 50-50 government. He has already erased that argument. It cannot be used any longer. Because if Spain can do it, then every member state can do it.
I have no hesitation in supporting quotas because the gender, the power relations between women and men are so deeply entrenched. You cannot wait all this time. I mean, we don't have 100 years to wait before the playing fields can be level between women and men. I think that quotas are a very quick and useful way of getting what we call a foot in the door. The women just get into the political playing field. Then once they are in, they can serve as role models for other women. They can then learn the rules of the game. And believe me, if you look in South Africa, they have more than 30% women in the parliament because the ANC, which is the ruling party, has a quota. Combination of that with PR, proportional representation. Mozambique, the same. Frelimo, the ruling party, they have a quota system. That's why they have more than about 30% women in parliament. Namibia, excellent example, doesn't have a quota at the national level, so their women are very few, but at the local government level, they have 46% because they have a quota. So quotas work in terms of getting the numbers in. The challenge is once the numbers are in, you have to keep supporting the women when they're in there and grow more women to get in the normal way. So quotas have to be time-bound. They can only be temporary because the men start squealing that it's now reverse discrimination. That's my African blood, I think, coming out. Throwing away the shoes. Struggling against leather and discomfort. Let me feel the water again.
Fadela Amara, French Secretary of State for Urban Affairs, has confirmed that she'll be present at the Women's Forum. But before Deauville, she first stops in Hérouville-Saint-Clair. In company of the mayor, Fadela Amara visits a forum devoted to employment in the region. Fadela Amara is, along with Rachida Dati and Ramayad, one of the women in the French government who doesn't come from the political circle. This self-educated woman was born in a large family from Cabyle descent. She grew up in Clermont-Ferrand, in Auvergne. She became known through her commitment at the head of the organization, Ni pute ni soumise, neither whores nor oppressed. Here she's in private with Anne Dornano, president of the Regional Council of Calvados. 2 generations, 2 different styles. On one side, Anne Dornano, an aristocrat who got into politics thanks to her husband, former mayor of Deauville. On the other side, Fadela Amara, who is a self-made woman. Has the situation of women changed in politics? For sure. We are a lot more women than when I started in politics. But still, there are obstacles. It's obvious, notably for women who live and come from working-class neighborhoods who want to do politics. It's 3 times more complicated for women because it means you have to manage your schedule. You must find someone to take care of the children. It's very complicated. It requires financial means to be able to have a political career. Officially, Fadela Amara only got involved in politics in 2001. But she campaigned actively since the age of 16, and she knows a lot about discrimination. Obviously, I think that a lot of women will tell you that they underwent discriminations when they wanted to make a political career. In terms of candidacies, political parties often favor male candidacies. That's a fact. There are a lot of women who experienced it. I've experienced it personally 2 times in my own city in Clermont-Ferrand, where parties rather favored male candidacies. But that didn't discourage me, and that's actually what urged me to fight until the end. Fadela Amara has even recently declared that the parity between men and women should be inscribed in the preamble to our constitution. In the forum's alleys, we count out the number of men. Here's one. Here's a second one. But the only male presence, that's him, the official photographer. There aren't a lot of men, that's true. The first time after 2 or 3 days, you wonder if you're not the only male survivor on this planet. And then afterwards, you get accustomed to it very quickly. But it shouldn't last more than 2 or 3 days because you have the feeling that they want to take over the power. On the 3rd day here, we become an inconvenience. Man becomes a real disturbance. In the beginning, you are tolerated, you can walk around and make yourself useful. Then you start becoming completely useless and superficial, and that's when it has to stop to return to normal life. This morning, there's a big event. Aude de Thuin welcomes a star, Ingrid Betancourt.
You have symbolized the courage, the stubbornness, the dignity of all women. And I think for that we all thank you.
I have very precise images of what I want to do. For those young people in Colombia that could be recruited by the guerrilla, because I want to avoid that. I want to give them opportunity not to choose that path. I think we can change the world if we use the proper tools if we use the proper words. And I think if we do, and if our heart is in these words,
on this train to Deauville is Salome Zourabichvili, who had an exceptional story. After 30 years at the Department of Foreign Affairs, where she represents France, in Italy, in Chad, in the United States, she goes back to Georgia, her native and beloved country. She then becomes Georgia's Secretary of Foreign Affairs, a first for a woman. Today, she has left the government and she founded an opposition party. Her goal is to get her country, now in the middle of a conflict with Russia, into the European Union. Her priority in Deauville is to mobilize the world's attention. I need every contact possible. I really believe in the networks of women. And as secretary, I really appreciated the Club of Female Secretaries, which was created by Madeleine Albright, and which allowed us to meet 2 times a year. There were about 15 of us.
Et qui permettait qu'on se retrouve 2 fois par an, on était à peu près une quinzaine.
What's different? It's different because we try first to know each other outside of our official roles as country leaders. We meet as individuals, and that allows us also to say things that we wouldn't say in an official and formal meeting. Are women different in that respect? Yes, I believe that they are more capable to jump from one role to the other. That is to say, play our official role as secretaries in a meeting and hold the appropriate diplomatic language. And beside these meetings, to talk more freely, to criticize your own role by saying that we had to say such thing because we were in our official role.
De pouvoir à la fois même critiquer sa propre position en disant ça j'étais obligé de le dire parce que c'était ma position officielle.
More freedom of speech in the negotiations, more distance with their relation to power. Can we really talk about female politics? It remains to be seen. As soon as she arrives in Deauville, Salome meets Shirin Tahir Kelied, U.S. diplomat, Condoleezza Rice's right hand.
I just wanted to introduce myself. We probably will meet. I'm Salome Zourabichvili. I'm the former Foreign Minister of Georgia. I've been meeting your boss, Condoleezza Rice, when she was coming to Georgia. And I wanted just to introduce myself.
Nice
and I know you're not dealing with my region.
No, well, but in a sense, you know, the women leaders group has had the Foreign Minister of Georgia as part of it. So
I was there with Madeleine Albright at that time, and after her.
And subsequently also last
That's
few
right.
meetings we've had the Foreign Minister.
Now I'm into politics. I'm no longer the foreign minister, but I'm in the Georgian Foreign Democratic Opposition.
Very good
so
to meet
it was,
you.
we will. I'll be here until Saturday, so I hope we'll see.
Meanwhile, Salome is expected for a roundtable conference devoted to Eastern countries. Nadere Chamlou from the World Bank is going to leave for the Middle East. Shirin Tahir Kelied, Condoleezza Rice's right hand, will face the defeat of her own Conservative Party at the US elections. They didn't know each other, they just met, and a little network was born.
Because traditionally, the networks that have swayed the corridors of power have been the boys' networks. And that is why creating of the network like the Women Leaders Group, because now they sort of are developing a joint Rolodex, the kind of networks that you see working in this forum are important because we are beginning to know each other.
I think networks are essentially access to information.
How come we're
That's
so
it.
late
We have to be.
Because we were never where the networks were established. We were not players. We were just not players. In isolation, you had 5 women doing things. And they were running with the boys. I mean, where was there time to go find the other 4? But now, I think between the communications and the numbers growing and the clear recognition that if we don't have the network, we don't know the kind of solidarity or the kind of expertise that is out there.
And information is key in our society. I mean, without information, you cannot you cannot take risks, informed risks. Without information, you cannot position yourself. And I think those things are important, and men have had that, because from the very, very young, you know, the men were talking business or politics and everything, and the girls were, or the women were in a different drawing room as such. And I think now, even
doing
in
their knitting or the embroidery. Some of us never were good at embroidery. I think that's why we went into other things. Didn't want to stay home and be making those little cushions. Didn't have the patience for it.
Was it your case?
Yeah. Could not. Couldn't do it, and would not have been good at it. So it's just as well to go on and play a different game.
In the forum, dominating males are in very little number. Due to the crisis, several CEOs have cancelled their trips. However, Carlos Ghosn, the charismatic head of Renault, believed it was important to be here. Under the watchful eye of Nedere Chamlou from the World Bank, Ghosn explains that at Renault, female managers, engineers, and designers create products more adapted to their clients and have better anticipation. For Nedere, the opportunity is a golden one.
Oh yeah? Yeah?
I'm actually going to go to Lebanon right after.
Oh, very good.
I was very much inspired by what you're saying, and I was wondering whether we could use you as a spokesperson, as someone for the Middle East and North Africa region, because precisely the women, the potential of women is not being
with pleasure, with pleasure.
Like
with pleasure. You know what I say here, I'll say it anywhere else.
Yeah.
No, so there is no problem, as long as it's promoting diversity and in some countries giving a little bit more confidence, giving a little bit more support to women. I'm totally favorable.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can I get you?
Yeah, sure, Madame de Grebes, thank you. كيف صحة؟
الحمد لله.
شرفنا.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, there are a couple of things that change societies. One is brute force, or the other thing is economic need. And frankly, when I go and see some of these, I was in Yemen recently, and I was invited to speak at the University of Sana'a. And there was half of the group, half of the class were men, and the other half were for women. And they were equal women of equal educational standing. So I was asking them, the boys, I said, what do you think? Do you think women should be given the equality? It costs money to get married, and it costs money to set up a house. And the fact that the man has to support his family, it's a tremendous, he has to support his family. It's a tremendous burden on the younger generation, because they see that it's going to be very difficult for them to support their whole family. At the end of the session, we were actually quite friendly, and he said, yes, I think we should be giving them equal rights so that they can help us in the process.
For Aude de Thuin, an agreement has been reached. If tomorrow women want to shake up the black suits and be in the picture, the economy is the key. And Mélanie Verveer, Hillary Clinton's former chief of staff at the White House, is convinced about it. Today, she is president of an American NGO which funds projects worldwide.
When you invest in a woman, she wants to pass that investment on to others. So the investments in women have a multiplier effect. Today, there are large numbers of women in India running village councils, local governments. There are studies being done that demonstrate that what those women are doing at the local level is transforming how decisions are made politically. They're investing in safe drinking water. They're investing in education. They're investing in health. They're using the public resources differently.
I'm delighted to be here. So there are only women? There's quite a lot of women. There are still a few men that we managed to attract. There aren't just male photographers. There are also men who come to listen to us. Here's Jean-Pierre. Jean-Pierre Jouyet is then Secretary of State for European Affairs. With Salome and Fadela, it looks like a summit meeting. Hi. She has always defended Georgia. It's Anne-Marie who defended Georgia. And this is Anne-Marie Drac, Secretary of State for Foreign Trade. I know you from my son who welcomed you in Mayotte. I'm going back to Mayotte. Is he still there? No, he's not. That's a shame. Fadela Amara prepares her speech with Mercedes Era, the head of EuroRSCG worldwide. Women say that part of this crisis is a healthy thing, but they were angry anyway. This crisis is healthy in a way because it will allow for a fresh start. It will allow us to lay new foundations. In order to leave the virtual to come closer to reality, to get closer to the economy of companies, of job-creating entrepreneurs. Let's put women in power. I really think that back to basics, how to feed the kids, how to create growth, how to start a business, how to raise children, that's what I call going back to basics. Is it because she's a woman? Is it because she doesn't come from rich neighborhoods? One thing is for sure, Fadela speaks plainly, like few secretaries do. When there are talks in political parties, for example, even in the high spheres of our republic and everywhere else, there are talks about posts that must be liberated to make some place to women. Well, the guys actually don't want to give anything. They don't want to abandon their privileges, neither the dough they make every month, nor their social status and all the privileges that go with it. That can be understood, but there comes a time when women must be given something. But giving isn't the right word, in fact. There's no such thing. We're not talking about men's philanthropy, generosity, or compassion here, like I'm going to leave my place for chicks. No, no, no. The truth is that women must fight to snatch places, and if push comes to shove, they will have to kick some ass. Shall we go for a drink? We want you at the UN. I'm going to make a request. That will shake them up at the UN. I would come with pleasure. I'm Colombian. Men need you. And we need you men as well. There remains an essential question. Do women really have a different way to practice power? Are they less violent? What about Thatcher, Indira Gandhi, Benazir Bhutto, and all the other ones? I don't know, but I don't think that women have a different way to practice power than men have. I don't believe they can add a softer touch. And first of all, I think that this myth has exploded the day when there was this incident in the Abu Ghraib prison in Iraq, where a young American female soldier, who was with her colleagues, has tortured Iraqi prisoners, and obviously she tortured in the same way, with as much cruelty, intensity, and violence.
Et visiblement, elle torturait de la même manière, avec autant de profondeur, autant de raffinité, autant de violence.
I didn't see any difference in the cruelty. I think that on this day, the differentiating myth of managing power in a different way, whether you're a man or a woman, this myth has exploded. Maria Kataoui, who has run Davos for 19 years and who is sitting on the board of several multinationals, takes a close look at the mechanics of power. She also puts an end to the cliches.
I do not see a difference in what they really have to do. The problems are the same. They're not looking at they have to handle these problems. The forces and the structures around them, whether they have to deal with parliaments or whether they have to deal with populaces or whether they have to deal with catastrophes, whatever they have to, they are the same. Now, your question to me is, do they do it better, do they worse, do they do it differently? Every human being will do it differently.
It's not a gender question.
I don't think so. I'm not given in to stereotypes. I think, let us hope that quality rises to the top. And I really don't care if it is a man or a woman. What I am concerned about is there's not enough in the pool from which to draw. There's not enough talent that gives itself, says, yes, I'm going to take that terrible chance of moving up in the political or business ladder. And there's even less of women than men.
Nevertheless, gathering 1,200 women of power gives an atmosphere slightly different from Davos. Here there are bars, relaxation rooms, and even makeup workshops. Between two round tables, Salome Zourabichvili, Georgia's former Foreign Affairs Secretary, has signed up for it. Salome, is coquetry important? Yes, because you must first have confidence in yourself to convince others. You must feel comfortable with yourself. And you feel good about yourself when you have the feeling that you look as good as you can be. Do you think that male politicians think a lot about that? I think that they start thinking about their image more and more. Television is starting to have an impact on everybody.
La télévision, ça commence à avoir des effets sur tout le monde.
Salome's passage to the makeup stand doesn't make her forget her political priority, to draw attention on Georgia. Her desire was even to meet Russian women to mention the conflict which opposes their two countries. She had offered to bring a Georgian delegation. Aude de Thuin was supposed to gather the Russians. I understood you haven't found a large delegation. No, because I found my own delegation. What was your plan with the delegations? No, first she had the idea of inviting the Russian delegation alone, and then I wanted to horn in as usual. And it's very difficult to set up. And there's something I understood better when I went to Moscow. Russian women simply told me that they hold the country together, but that they actually have no power. They don't own any capital or business, and they don't have any means. So they tell me that they work and hold the country together in that way, and I'm sure about this. But they don't have any capital because in that country women aren't given any leadership responsibilities. It really struck me, contrary to other countries where there are structures of family capitalism and structures which leave places for women, like in China, for example, which is a great country in that respect. And it's also because capital isn't really individualistic. Absolutely. It's rather a kind of mafia. Yes, absolutely. So it's more difficult for women. It was very interesting to hear that, and it's clear that we had a hard time identifying this group and invite them over. Hear that, and it's clear that we had a hard time identifying this group and invite them over. Deauville, 8 p.m. This evening, there's an astonishing show. Actresses are going to play out the life and the political struggle, often heartbreaking, of 7 women across the world. These women are invited in Deauville and will attend this play. One of them is called Mu Sochua. She's Cambodian. Her parents died from the genocide. After 18 years of exile, she goes back to her country, and she gets involved in politics to fight against corruption despite the danger. In the dressing room before the show, she meets Ines, an Irish union activist, another heroine from the play.
On the way coming here, I thought she would be more in the... You know, one interesting thing was I was reading her story. Do you think it needs
much more courage for a woman to become a leadership woman than for a man?
It needs more stubbornness. I think you have to go according to your heart, to principle. You don't go into, as women, we don't go into politics because we want to make a career out of it. We want because the heart say the world is not right, the society is not right. I know I can make a change. Yeah. And that change has to come from us. And if we were to come back, go where? Come back to Paris? Go back to San Francisco where I spent some years of my adolescence? No. I'm a woman, I'm a mother, I belong in Cambodia. There's no way out of it. And Cambodia, for me, is where the meaning of life is all about. With what Cambodia offers, that's I can offer as well. And if I were to be taken away from Cambodia, I would not exist.
How far would you accept to go?
Till the end.
Till the end. You don't mean she lives in.
I live in Cambodia.
But she lives in daily danger, you know. But she doesn't define her life by that, you know.
But if you start thinking about the fear, you make the fear control your body and your mind. You have to go into it. And if we choose to, we don't. It's not a choice.
Mu Sochua, Ines, and the other ones will relive their past through the actresses who embody them. The story of women who got involved in politics after having suffered in their own flesh and blood. One day they thought, that's enough.
This year, 2,500 women have been murdered. They were born, they were good, and now they are dead.
In Russia, 14,000 women every year are killed by their husbands. One woman every hour.
For more than an hour, I am raped by those 4 men of the Mastoi tribe.
If you have been tortured, raped, or battered, it's your karma. So if you believe in this, you may as well say, that's it, that's the end of my life.
In the room, Fawzia Koofi, a 33-year-old Afghan MP. She was elected in September 2005.
The police began stalking me all the time, molestando. Stop your car!
One of them sticks a large gun hard between my legs and calls me an effing bitch.
Until that time, only men held that position. Free these refugees.
Fawzia Koofi, the young Afghan MP, rushes to the scene to embrace her fellow citizen who struggled against the Taliban.
For instance, the rape issue, for instance, the issue of violence, domestic violence, these are the issues that even politicians don't dare to talk about it, although in my case it's different because I am the one who always talk about rape and sexual abuse and women rights abuse, particularly when it comes to personal sexual abuse of women, domestic violence in the families. But it's different from here. You see the woman talk about it, and it's very touching. I was crying the whole period because it reminds me of all the realities which is happening in Afghanistan.
Incredible, incredible women. This is my second time. Really? This one was the best. Really. Your words take me back so many places. Thank you.
Within a few years, this forum imposed itself. Asia and the Middle East take a very close look at it. There remains a more personal question. Why did Aude de Thuin plunge into this adventure? Is this forum a revenge for you? It's not a revenge. It's probably the result and continuation of my story, but it's not a revenge. I come from a family where girls didn't mean anything. My mother had 6 girls. She only dreamed of having a boy, and when you live with that all the time, it becomes a burden. So it's quite funny to realize that I'm running a women's forum now. And I think that all of it is related, of course. But at the same time, I didn't do it out of revenge. I did it because I was in harmony with myself the day when I accepted all that.
It is a fight because, you know, somebody has to give up power. Somebody has to leave his seat, and it means that it will not come without any fights or without struggle. So yes, of course there is still a battle to win, or that they will always give you the label, you're a feminist. This is for the women to take care of. This is not for women. This is not a fight for women. This is a fight for both women and men. And men will actually, in the end, also benefit from this. The whole society will benefit.
One thing is for sure, these women who came from 88 countries are inventing tomorrow's world with quite an uncommon energy.